Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. This week, I'm sitting down with Kali Roberge, the Chief Operations Officer at Beyond Your Hammock, a wealth management firm based in Boston that serves professionals in their 30s and 40s. Prior to joining BYH, she ran a content marketing agency for financial advisors and ran marketing at XI Planning Network. Prior to joining BYH, she ran a content marketing agency for financial advisors and ran marketing at XI Planning Network. Now, Beyond Your Hammock was founded by her husband, Eric Roberge, and I actually used to work for Kali and Eric, helping them with some of their content marketing when they had a young daughter at home and just needed to bring in some outside help. I always see Eric's face in my newsfeed because he's always publishing articles on Business Insider. So I was really excited to get Kali on here to talk about their particular brand of content marketing and how they get Eric featured in big publications like Business Insider. And one of the really great things about this conversation was learning about how Beyond Your Hammock has built such a successful practice around content marketing, something that is becoming increasingly challenging as the landscape kind of evolves with search and AI and all of that good stuff. So in our conversation today, Kali is pulling back the curtain on exactly how they've made content the hub of their entire marketing strategy, from securing those regular features in publications like Business Insider to building a blog on their website that consistently drives qualified leads. She also shares the specific questions that they ask on their intake forms to filter prospects and explains why they've chosen to focus their energy on platforms where they naturally excel rather than trying to be everywhere at once. What I found really valuable about this conversation was Kali's candid discussion about how they're adapting their SEO strategy in response to AI-powered search tools. So as someone who has seen organic search traffic decline, but qualified leads remain steady, she offers practical insights into how financial advisors can future-proof their content marketing efforts. And I always love to bring actual advisors and their teams on this podcast who are in there doing the work, making the changes, seeing the results, so that you don't just have to take it from me and other marketers who talk about some of these things, sometimes in more general terms. So if you've been struggling to make content marketing work for your practice, or if you're wondering how to adapt your SEO strategy for an AI-driven world, this conversation will give you a roadmap for building a content strategy that actually generates qualified prospects. So I love that Kali's approach proves that playing to your strengths and being strategic about where you invest your marketing energy can lead to some really remarkable results. So without further ado, let's dive in. Kali, I'm so excited to have you on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast with me. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. So I would love if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are. Tell us about Beyond Your Hammock, maybe how you and Eric got into this space, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Compliance Officer, Chief Operations Officer of Beyond Your Hammock. I wear many hats, and Eric founded the firm in 2013, and he and I started working together around 2016, but it wasn't until 2018, I believe, that I actually joined the firm officially. Before that, I had a career more in marketing, but for financial advisors. I was the marketing manager at XY Planning Network when they first launched, and I had my own marketing agency helping financial advisors primarily with content marketing. And then when Eric and I got married, we decided to kind of join our efforts and pull in the same direction rather than trying to both grow and scale businesses. And so I joined Beyond Your Hammock as, kind of the chief getting everything else done officer that he wasn't able to get to, but with the focus on operations and marketing.
Oh, that's so great. So Beyond Your Hammock just turned 12. Did I hear that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, well, that's congratulations. That's so exciting. So, one reason I was so excited to have you guys on here is because I always see Eric's face pop up in my newsfeed. He's often featured in Business Insider articles, and they're very educational, value-packed articles. This was probably several years ago, but I know there was one that I think did really well for you guys about planning to add a child to your family and building in the cost of childcare expenses. So I'd love to get a sense of your full marketing strategy. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about maybe how Eric started to get featured in Business Insider articles and what that's been like for you all as a firm?
Sure. I think it started with, many years ago, one of the big focuses that he had, even before we started working together, was trying to get featured in publications, getting quotes, not so much to attract clients back to the firm, but to get backlinks to the website for SEO purposes. And that's been a strategy that worked really well in the past. It still works for us today, but he was just really pounding the pavement on responding to reporters when they would send out media requests through various portals. Help a Reporter Out was one of them, which actually just got refreshed and relaunched. But FPA has a media system like that, Exploit Plan Network does. So he would just work really hard. It really is a numbers game of just trying to respond to as many of those as he could, as quickly as he could, because those reporters and writers are often on a deadline. And so through doing that, he built up a great relationship with a lot of writers and also editors. And then once he had kind of proven himself as a reliable source to them, we together, once we started working together, we started pitching those editors on having Eric not just be a source, but a writer for the publication. So that's how we got in with Business Insider, as well as Kiplinger and Forbes.
I think that's so great. Last year on the podcast, I had a writer for Forbes on. His name is Robert Farrington. And we kind of talked about how important it is to respond really quickly to those requests from reporters and journalists because they are on deadlines. And once you commit to it and you build up those relationships, it really does get easier after that initial period where you're just, responding to their questions. Developing that relationship with them, I think, leads to so many other opportunities to both be quoted and then like Eric took it a step further and was able to become a writer as well. So could you tell us a little bit about, so it sounds like the backlinks, that was one element of your marketing strategy. Can you give us a broad overview of what you guys do and maybe even how it's evolved over the years to market Beyond Your Hammock?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the hub of what we do is content. It all comes back to that, whether it's content on our own website, and that takes the form of the actual web pages, the copy on that, as well as blog posts that are getting published. It's the content that we're publishing on third-party sites like Business Insider, and it's also the content that we're putting out on social media, the content that we're getting out there through those quotes. That's really what is generating and driving a lot of what we're trying to do is like I said, I come from a background in content marketing, and I am the marketer at Beyond Your Hammock. So that is why we kind of dug into that and doubled down on it, because that was a strength of ours. And I'm a big believer in, as much as I am tempted to fix my weaknesses, because I always want to improve, I always want to grow, you also need to play to your strengths, because that's where your leverage is, that's where your energy is. So that's what we try to do. And then from that, branching out into more specific strategies, if we knew that content was kind of the overarching driver of what we were doing, then we were looking at specific tactics like SEO, like, being able to write for other publications, being able to branch out onto social media platforms that valued and were focused on writing, which is why we're more on LinkedIn rather than Instagram, and we're not on TikTok. We tried, we experimented, but that's just not, when we can't do everything and we have to pick, we have to be selective. We're going to drive toward the things that are easiest for us in terms of least energy required. Like the energy is already there for it. I don't have to manufacture that, versus like being on a video. I do not like that. I don't want to be on social media. I don't want to be making TikToks. I don't want to be making reels. I could, but it's just so much of it. Like I have to drag myself through it.
Right.
So that is a big way that we filter what we're going to do and not do, is just, does this light you up? Do you enjoy this? If the answer is no, we're probably not going to do it, or we're going to look to outsource it to someone who might really like to do it.
I think that's such an important piece of the puzzle. Of course, you want to be showing up where your audience is, right? But if you have to show up in a place where you literally have to drag yourself to it every day, how consistent can you really be there? I think that's just such a real part of content marketing. You also have to choose the platforms where like you said, I love the way you put this, where the energy is already there for you. So it sounds like you said you guys are on LinkedIn, you guys have the blog, you have the publications as well. I should have asked you this in the beginning, but who is your ideal client?
Client is someone who's actually quite a bit like us in their 30s or 40s. They're very dedicated to their career. They have a very highly demanding career, and they're, you know, maybe an executive, maybe they are very high up in their company. They're married. They usually have a growing family, small children under 5. But what's interesting about our clients is I can think of out of 100 plus households, one person is a stay-at-home parent.
Mm.
Everyone else is working. So that's what I mean by they're very dedicated and engaged in their careers. And they also are high earners partially because of that. So they're making 500,000 or more as a household. And that is usually through a combination of W-2 income, but also equity comp, bonuses, other forms of, commission, like various comp structures. It's not just I receive a paycheck. So that creates some complexity on the income side. It also creates an interesting tax situation if you're not watching it. And then it generates a very, very strong cash flow, which also comes with its own complications in that you have to really manage that. It takes a lot of work. So they have a lot of planning concerns going on, but they're also very tied up with their jobs. And just because they do love their jobs doesn't mean they don't love their family, right?
Right.
They want to free up their time to spend, every minute of free time they have, they want to spend it with their kids. So that's probably our ideal client in a nutshell. And we're based in Boston. We work with people across the U.S., but I would say probably 50% of our clients, maybe a little bit more, are in New England and the
Mm.
Northeast, and almost everyone is around. If they're not in around Boston, they're in some other kind of metro area.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, I can see, you're in the office right now. Do you have clients coming to the office in person?
We don't. We could, but we don't. Ever since COVID, not a single person has asked to meet
Mm.
with us in person. These are clients that we have been working with for 8, 9 years sometimes, so we have a good relationship with them. Sometimes Eric will actually meet them for lunch or for coffee, but we don't have meetings in the office simply because they haven't asked. And I think it's again that job driven thing of like they're working at home or they're just tied up in meetings of their own and their workplace. And it's just so much more convenient to meet on Zoom.
Right. Do you feel that before COVID that was different? Did they come more in person more often?
A little different. It was probably 50-50
Mm.
before. 50% of people were virtual and 50% they wanted to come to the office. We're in downtown Boston. So I think the people that were also working in downtown, like they would come over, on their lunch hour or something like that. So there was a little bit more interest, but I think now that has, like I said, nobody's asked. We would be more than happy to meet in person, but no one's made the request yet.
Well, that just makes so much sense to me from a marketing perspective, too, to pour the majority of your marketing efforts into online content as well. Now, you mentioned that you all had tried Instagram and TikTok, but that didn't really result in anything for you. Was that, do you think, a product of not really having the energy to show up there, or did you feel that your ideal clients maybe weren't there either?
I think they're there. I think they are lurkers more than they are posters or creators. I know that's certainly how I consume Instagram at this point in my life. I would honestly rather just, if I'm going to be on it, it's very, very passively kind of scrolling, which can still work from a marketing perspective. But I think it's more that we're not interested. And I think you had said this before, which is like, I think the key to any marketing, no matter what you're doing, the consistency. Like
Mhm.
we were just not consistent due to all the other, balls in the air that we weren't going to drop. So the idea of being on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, even creating videos, is still really appealing. But we just know the reality is that we don't have the bandwidth for it. And that is probably the most important thing, I would think, with any marketing strategy, because anything can work, right? Anything is viable if you're consistent, if you're committed, if you're going to show up again and again and again. And that's we just couldn't with those platforms.
Right, right. So the blogging and the showing up on LinkedIn and the featured articles, those are working for you. Can you tell me a little bit in tangible terms what it means when you say those are working for us?
I think they're driving traffic back to the website, and a good amount of that traffic is converting into people who are scheduling prospect calls. The amount of prospects that we have scheduled calls, that's kind of like our ultimate marketing metric. And that's where things after that, it kind of shifts over into sales metrics. But we want to see, a certain amount of people scheduling calls. And we have on the way that we track it to know like what's working and what's not is that we have OneSub set up as our scheduling system. And we have a questionnaire attached to that for prospects where we ask them, some basic screening information. So that way, A, we don't have to schedule everyone who comes through. We know who's qualified and who's not kind of right off the bat. But then B, we get a sense of where they're coming from. And the number one generator for us for leads is still SEO, like organic search is huge. It's about 50% of our leads. The next after that is some specific content. They saw a blog post or they saw a LinkedIn article or a Business Insider article.
Okay. People are booking calls. You said you have a form there with some questions for them to kind of filter out qualified versus unqualified leads for you. Would you mind sharing what some of those questions are?
Yes, absolutely. So we ask for name, email address, phone number, typical stuff. We ask if they have a partner, what their name is, if that's applicable. And then in terms of screening, we give them a range as far as what your income is. So we have, I think, 3 choices. One of them is 400,000 and below. One of them, and this is annual household income. The other option is 400,000 to $1 million in income, and then it's $1 million or more. So anyone who is selecting that under 400,000, we don't schedule a call with them just because the cost of our service, it doesn't make sense for them. And we never want our service to be a burden on someone's cash flow. So that we know if they're under a certain amount of income that they're probably just not there yet in terms of complexity. So we can't offer as much value. And again, like it's just too much on their cash flow. So what we will do with those people is we still respond. We try to, as politely as possible, decline their request to book a call with us. And we give them 3 other places that they can go. One of them, we just talk about XY Plan Network, the Find an Advisor portal, so that they have some, choice and agency if they want to search through and find someone. And then we try to name off 2 other advisors that we think would be a good fit for them. The next question that we ask is what level of assets someone has. And we leave this one doesn't have a drop down. It's just open for them to put in. And it's tricky because we are trying to get a sense of how much in investable assets someone has. Mm-hmm. So I believe the way the question is worded is, what is your, I don't know if it's net worth, but it's something like that, like minus real estate and 401k, basically is what we're trying to get at. Just to get a sense of, we don't have to have an exact number. What we want to have a sense of is someone coming to the table with 0 assets, which could be fine. Do they have $1 million? Like it's a big difference. So we just want to try to understand where someone might fall because we don't have official or formal minimums. We really look more at income as the qualifier. And then after that, we ask what is like the main planning concern they have, what motivated them to contact a financial planner, because those are more intangible questions, but the answers are often very revealing, especially if someone is saying like, well, I want to invest in real estate and I have 0 investable assets. I want to invest in real estate and I have my income's on the lower side. Like to us, that's a signal of not the right fit because that's not what we do. Right. So I think that covers the questions that we ask. And then again, where did you find us? And if it was a referral, we give them a spot to like, do you want to list who it was?
Okay. Do you find that of the people who are filling out the form, are most of them qualified or is it kind of split down? How is it split?
I think I don't have the exact number in front of me for this year, but just kind of going off of gut feel, I would say about 40% of people are qualified and probably another 60% aren't that we just kind of refer out. We don't want to totally shut down that pipeline of people that aren't necessarily qualified for our ongoing wealth management service because it's a constant kind of debate within the firm of do we want to restart our quick start program, which was one-time plans, which is more transactional, and we shut it down because for a while Eric was our only advisor and he just didn't have the capacity. But now that we have Max, our associate advisor, he's got a CFP. So we're playing around with that idea again of opening it back up because then almost everyone would be a qualified lead if they just had that other program to go to.
Right. Okay. Do people seem hesitant to answer questions about their income and their investable assets. I suppose it's probably hard to know because you don't know who's necessarily clicking away. But do they ever talk about it in their discovery calls?
I don't think it comes up very often. That is a concern, though, that we had when we created the form, because we were like, well, what if they're just not ready to share that information? They want to talk to us first, which is perfectly reasonable. And we eventually landed on, well, we're going to ask it anyway, and we're going to just take off it's not a required field. It's there,
Mm.
especially on the investable asset line. That is just something that they can fill out, but they don't have to. The income one, I do think they have to select, but that's why we made it a range. So it's not quite so intense, quite so personal, because under 400,000 or 400,000 to a million is a pretty big range. So I think people are comfortable just picking something in there. And then by removing the requirement to fill out, like, well, how many assets do you have? Hopefully that's reducing some of the pressure. And that's what we find is people who maybe might have been reluctant to say, they just won't fill it in, or they'll put in, you know, something that we didn't ask for. That can also be telling is when you look at all of these things in the aggregate, there are some signs of, like, if they didn't fill out the investable assets, if they put some strange reason for reaching out for a financial planner, it's usually not a good fit. So it's a very helpful screening tool when we're not necessarily trying to get every call scheduled, because Eric is the one that takes all the sales calls. So we don't necessarily want to load his calendar up. We would rather be turning away more people than we're kind of letting in the door at this point.
Right, absolutely. Well, I'm always a big fan of adding those screening calls to a form like that, but I do think people really hesitate. So it's helpful, I think, for listeners to hear that you guys hesitated, but you decided to test it out anyways. And it sounds like it's been beneficial for the firm and for growth.
Yeah, it's definitely been helpful. And it is something that it's not set in stone. Like, we have changed that form several times. And that's actually an item on our leadership meeting agenda. We haven't gotten to it yet. It keeps rolling over week to week, but it's like, review the form. Like, we will try to pay attention to what other advisors are doing. And if we come across someone who has a really, like, oh, that's a good booking form, like, we'll
Mm-hmm.
try to save the link and review that and be like, do we want to tweak our questions? Do we want to take something out? Do we want to bring something in that might be more useful for prospects or for ourselves?
Mm. Now, do you guys do any email marketing, or is it mostly kind of the content that's out there where people can find you and see you just on the internet?
Technically, we do have a newsletter. We've got a lead magnet, a free ebook that someone can get if they sign up for our newsletter. And we do have a email that goes out twice a month, but it's not something we put a lot of time or effort into, mostly just because we haven't seen a lot of conversion off of it. We have a really great open rate, a pretty strong click through rate, but we just don't see people convert off that list to become clients. I don't know why that is. I wish I had a specific reason, but it seems like people seem to like it. They just seem to hang out on the
Mm.
newsletter. They don't necessarily convert all the way to clients. So we've had better success in, instead of having the middle of our funnel be an email newsletter, we have better luck using a process where we're offering a one-page financial plan when
Mm.
someone schedules a call with us. And then we're also in the process of relaunching our own podcast, because I think that served as a better middle of the funnel activity for us than email marketing. We just got jammed up a while back when we had our daughter. Actually, we had to stop doing the podcast, and I think we're just now coming up for air. we can work on that again.
I have to ask, how old is your daughter?
She is a little bit over 3.5. She'll be 4 in a couple months.
Okay, great. I just had a baby last fall. She's 9 months now, and so I know that I'm like I totally feel like I'm underwater right now.
Yes, well, hopefully you can surface before 3.5 years, but it's just taken us a long time. And we often joke, like, the business was the first baby we didn't know that we had until we had
Right.
an actual baby. So
Right. It's so true. Well, Kaylee, this has been really helpful. Thank you for giving us kind of a peek behind the curtain of what's worked for you guys, what hasn't worked for you. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about yet that's part of your marketing strategy, or that you would love to share with listeners?
I think the only thing that's kind of top of mind for me right now is because we have relied on SEO so heavily in the past, and I would imagine most people listening to this, if they track their, Google Analytics, their website metrics, they've probably seen a decline, I would guess, in the past year. And I think that's largely due to AI kind of taking over search and Google shifting its focus. We've seen that too. We've seen our organic traffic decline, even though it is still the biggest driver of our leads, which is a good and a bad thing. So we haven't actually seen the amount of qualified leads changing. So it just means that we're getting less traffic, but we're still converting what we need to. But it has caused us to shift our focus into, okay, we need to leverage this massive library of content that we have to make sure that it's AI friendly. So we're kind of tweaking just a little bit, like from focusing really heavily on traditional SEO, which is still important, but we're just trying to turn just a little bit so that we're looking not so much at keywords, but at search intent. So some of that is in the new content that we're building out. We're trying to keep that in mind when we're creating it, but also in going back through it, all of our old posts and trying to look at how do we make this more likely to come up when someone asks, ChatGPT or Perplexity, like, how do I find a financial advisor near me? If they're asking that instead of Google, or even Google, because now they've got the AI overview answer, we want to make sure that whatever AI bot or agent is pulling that result, that it looks at us too. So that's kind of our big refocus for this year, is making sure that all this content that we've spent years producing is still valuable for us. And that means making sure that it will surface with AI.
Right, absolutely. Do you mind sharing? I mean, one tactical thing that you're doing, like if you look at a blog post and you want to kind of optimize it for the AI search bots, what's one thing that you might do to optimize it?
I think the first thing that we're doing is looking at it again through that lens of search intent, like
Hmm.
because that's part of that is how we came up with the keywords in the first place, the keywords that we wanted to rank for. But now it's kind of zooming out a little bit and thinking about like what questions is someone asking to make this piece of content relevant or to pop up for them.
Mm.
And then once we have some idea of search intent, we'll go back through and kind of check and see, is there anything that's majorly misaligned with this piece as far as the title, the subheadings. We want to make sure that those are kind of answering a search query.
Hmm.
And then we're looking at adding bits and pieces to the content. So we're trying to add key takeaways to the top of every blog post. We're trying
Mm.
to add an FAQ section at the bottom. And then what we are doing to help us with this is using AI.
Yeah.
Specifically, I've built out some prompts that I've been running through Gemini, Google's AI, and I'm saying, help me optimize this for search intent. If
Hmm.
can you take this and write SEO optimized keywords or not keywords, key takeaways that are optimized for search intent? That
Mm.
kind of language, prompting the AI with that, and then using not completely wholesale what it gives back, but taking that as my draft and then tweaking it before I add it to the post and republish it with that new content included.
I think that's so smart. And I'd love to share something that I've been doing with clients too, as well,
Yeah.
because I'm curious if you're doing this too. I've also been thinking a lot about, search intent, and especially when the user is kind of at the bottom of the funnel, like they're looking for somebody to work with. And so I've been typing in, knowing who my clients are, I've been typing in things like, I'm whoops, I'm XYZ and I'm looking for a financial advisor who does this, and to see what pops up and see what questions the AI tool asks me back in order to find the best results for me, and then creating content that kind of answers those questions. Have you tried anything like that to kind of get the content ideas for the search engines?
I haven't, but I'm going to start doing that now that you share. That's a great idea. And I think that would really help complement what we're trying to do as far as reworking specific content. That sounds like a great strategy for guiding the creation of new content so that
Right.
you're, signaling to those, like I said, AI bots or agents or language models that you are the content they're looking for.
Right, 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 right. Well, Kaylee, I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think that is such an important part of the conversation right now, especially for advisors. And there are several that I know of who have gotten most of their leads from SEO. And I think you're right. SEO is definitely not going away, but it is changing a little bit. So it's great to hear how you guys are adapting to that. If people want to learn more about you or Eric or Beyond Your Hammock, where are the best places for them to do that?
I think the best place to go is beyondyourhammock.com. That is our site, and you can find anything and everything you want about us there as far as what we do or our blog podcast. You can take a look at our work with us page that is hopefully a good example of how you can structure a process, like a middle of the funnel process. That's not an email newsletter or not an ebook. If that's not working for you, we have a whole process built out where we're trying to offer a complimentary one-page plan to a qualified lead who schedules with us. And then we have a whole sales process out from there. So that might be a good resource for advisors. And then Eric is on LinkedIn. I am technically on there too, but as the marketing person, I very much prefer to stay behind the scenes and not market myself. So I'll say go to Eric's LinkedIn. He's on there. And then we are on Instagram at Beyond Finances. But to be honest with you, it's just republished stuff from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the source.
I love that. Well, I'll link to all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much good stuff with us, Kali.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.